Hello and welcome back to another episode of Raw and Real with Stefanie Fernandes. I'm Stefanie, your podcast host, rapid transformational therapist, and founder of Your Freedom program. I help women that want to take back their life, returning to themselves on their healing journey. In this podcast, we give the stage to women who overcame adversity, trauma, or difficult phases in their life. The stories we share here are to inspire women just like you that anything is possible. Be ready to get raw emotions from real people. In today's episode, we will be talking about exhaustion. Exhaustion is overwhelming, and it's not like, normal tiredness. It's like trying to move through thick mud and think through thick fog, and all you want is just to lie down and sleep. And then sleep some more after that. You can't function because everything leaves you wiped out. Trying to juggle different aspects of life and having less time to prioritize your own health is quite common among women who have symptoms of exhaustion. And today, my guest is Jessica Pozo. Jessica is a former nurse, like me, yay! And I'm so excited to have a fellow former nurse on the podcast. And Jessica calls herself a chronic goal achiever. She overcame exhaustion with functional medicine, and today she's a health coach and a functional medicine health coach herself. Hi, Jessica. Thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you so much, Stefanie, for the introduction. I'm so excited to be here.
I love that you share your journey and story with us today, because exhaustion is often overlooked because it can be confused with just regular stress symptoms. But really, it is more than stress. And you can think straight, or you can think at all, and you can't sleep well. And even though you're beyond tired, you can't sleep, and you're moody. And I love that you work with nurses and moms who are looking to excel in multiple areas of life while still creating, place for balance. And since becoming a mom myself and opening my own therapy practice, I just feel firsthand the struggle of balancing achievement and unwinding. So I'm very excited to have you, and please tell us your story today.
Sure, yeah. It's quite a long story, but I'll try to sort of sum it up. My journey sort of started when I was in my, mid-20s. I was in school. I was starting work as a nurse, and I had a busy social life. I was trying to do all of the things, and I just couldn't stay awake at times. Like I first realized that it was an issue when I was leaving post-op calls. I was making post-op calls for my patients, and I couldn't get through a call without yawning midway. So, I'd be like, "Hey, Stefanie, how are you doing after your surgery?" And then like big yawn, and then the rest of it. And that, and the other part was just anything after sort of 9 p.m. I would be so tired, I would fall asleep. I'd be the friend in the corner that was, having a nap. And everybody else was up, until 2 a.m., 3 a.m. And I was young. I was, in my mid-20s, and I'm like, why is this happening to me? And I, so I started to try to figure out what was happening. And I went to the doctor. And I'm here in Canada, so we have a publicly funded medical system. And so, typically people will try to exhaust all of the options in the public system before sort of reaching out to alternative therapies, I guess you could say. And so I did that. I went to my doctor. I did blood work. We did a little bit of iron. My iron wasn't significantly low, but we started taking some iron, and that came, of course, with other sort of side effects, constipation and things like that. And then we did a sleep study. They didn't find anything really in my sleep study, and I was just feeling, I'm going to the doctor. They're telling me everything's normal, and I'm just feeling, but I'm not normal. And so luckily for me, I ended up in a IV nutrient therapy clinic, and that was sort of my first exposure to naturopathic medicine. And but even still, like I was working with a naturopathic doctor, and still there was this sort of doubt, I guess, being in the medical community of like, you know, are naturopathic doctors actually going to help me? And you know, if my own medical doctor can't find a solution, then how am I going to be helped through naturopathic medicine? But anyhow, it was just so awful to just be missing out on all of these moments with my friends and family. And you know, I was starting to learn a little bit more about micronutrients and absorption and all of these things. And so I decided, okay, I'm gonna try it out. And so once I started working with a naturopathic doctor is when I started to see significant improvements in my health. And that wasn't the end though for me, because now I was really curious about like why didn't I know about this before? Why is this so sort of like it's not well known here in Canada? Like, so I actually, what ended up happening is I ended up meeting a health coach. I've never met a health coach either. And at one point in my career, I met a health coach, and she was a nurse turned into a health coach. And I asked her about it, and she told me all about it. Anyhow, I ended up getting trained in functional medicine health coaching. And that's, you know, that just added to everything, because now I had the knowledge behind it. It wasn't like I had to go to the naturopathic doctor and you know, follow the instructions, which were amazing, but I actually was starting to learn myself about root cause medicine, and starting to, you know, progressively heal my body even further. And so now it's sort of at a point where I don't really need supplements, because a lot of the treatment that was naturopathic medicine was obviously lifestyle, and a lot of supplements. And so now I'm sort of at a place where I don't need as many supplements. I do still take them because they're beneficial, but I was able to use the basics of functional medicine to heal my body. And so now I don't have these moments of falling asleep in the corner anymore. I actually had a party the other day, and we stayed up till 4 a.m. and I was like, wow, this this is unheard of. So it was great. Yeah.
I just want to go back a little bit on your story where you mentioned that you went to see your GP. And yeah, just like in Europe where I'm based, the healthcare system is publicly funded, and anything that is not within the reimbursed service or within the publicly funded service is very difficult for people to get acquainted to. The doors are not as open, like in a very physical way, like you don't know where to turn to. But at the same time, what I realize now that I'm providing services that are outside of the publicly funded services is that people wonder, well, if that is so good, why is it then not funded by the public system? So I'd rather go to my GP that is really not the expert in helping me with the issue I have. In many other issues, yes, but it seems that there is a mental block of accessing services outside of the publicly funded system.
Yeah.
And I was wondering, when you approached your GP, and how was, like, can you tell us a little bit about how that process was and how the doors to that alternative treatment or way of looking at health opened for you?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you know, I went into my doctor. I told him what was going on, and you know, how I was falling asleep and just feeling low energy all the time. And he, you know, he did what's within his scope, and you know, what's covered under the system, as you say. And he ran the blood work. He sent me for the sleep study. But like, it was normal. It was all normal. And I was lucky. Like he didn't, and I didn't expect him to tell me that there's other doctors I could see, like obviously we're working within the public system and that all makes sense. But I was lucky. I was in the right place at the right time. I was working in an IV nutrient therapy clinic, not because I wanted to sort of go to an alternative health clinic, but because it was a job that was near my other job and that I could work, after my other job. So it was luck for me that I ended up in this place with this amazing naturopathic doctor who I was then working with, and I was learning about naturopathic and functional medicine. And so I decided to take a chance because I didn't get a result from the medical system. And the other question that the doctor asked me was if I was depressed, if I was, experiencing depression. And I didn't think that was it, but I think that it was, either your iron is low, or maybe you're depressed, or maybe your sleep something's wrong with your sleep. Okay, if none of those things, then I don't know, kind of thing. So I was lucky. Honestly, I was lucky. I was in the right place at the right time. And even when it came to learning more about functional medicine, I was at a conference for the IV nutrient clinic, and that's where I sat next to a health coach. Like it was just meant to be, I think. And it's not the same case for everybody, or a lot of people. They don't have that, they're not put into this position where they have, a naturopathic doctor that they're kind of like knowing, liking, and trusting, and then deciding, okay, let me try it out, right? So it was really, I would attribute it to fate and luck. I would say.
Yeah, it was just meant to be,
Yeah.
which is really nice for you. And I hope that by you sharing your story and many people listening to this, that they also find hope in their situation. And when you are just so exhausted and you're just constantly tired, it's easy to think that there's something wrong with me. Like I am overreacting. I am just not strong enough. I am just not resilient enough for, a nursing job is very stressful at times, and or most of the time.
Yeah.
And it's easy to just say, look, I'm just not made for this job, or I'm not made for that. And instead of looking inwards and saying, what are my resources and where can I strengthen my resources, it is very common for women to just think, okay, I just need to leave, and you don't do as much as you would like, because when you talk about yourself as a goal achiever, this is what gives you motivation. This is what fills you up, what you need. Imagine yourself being in a job where you don't have those goals that you can achieve, where it's not that maybe high paced. You would not be happy either. You would still be tired, and maybe you would even get depressed because you're not following your purpose. So yeah, interesting.
Yeah, exactly. I love what you said there, and it's so true. Like I actually forgot to mention one point of the story, which is I had a client who came into this IV nutrient therapy clinic, and they invited me to this event, and it was a Tony Robbins event, and I didn't know anything about Tony Robbins at the time, or sort of personal development or anything like that. And they invited me to this event. They said, just go. They said, just go to this event. They didn't tell me anything about the event. They're like, just go. And I went. And that event totally blew my mind as well, because it was a total mindset shift. And although I was always a goal achiever, going to this event and just having that switch in mentality, I think made me more open, and then also allowed me to pursue the alternative medicine, we can say. But I forgot to mention that important part of my story. It was like I was open to learning different things, and so I went to this event not even knowing what it was, who that person was, or anything. And then coming out like, wow, like I can just coming out with so much gratitude and hope, and just feeling like in control of my destiny. And yeah.
What was your biggest awakening that you remember from this event?
It was gratitude. It was so much gratitude for just, even though you can be feeling like, things aren't going the way it should, I'm young, why am I feeling this way? Why can't I connect to my friends? Why am I like this, and then turning into a place of like, but also, you're a nurse and you have all these, you have 2 jobs and you have people that love you, and just coming from a place of gratitude, and also feeling like I could do anything, like that anything is possible. So those 2 things, coming from gratitude and feeling like anything is possible, like whatever I set my mind to, I could achieve it. And even in my health where, they were telling me that I was normal and I didn't feel normal, but now I was like, there's other things that I can do. What are they? And let me find them, So
I love that. Gives
it
me
was great.
And what happened afterwards?
What happened after the event?
Hmm.
Oh my gosh, I came home. I was high on life for weeks, and just so optimistic about life, and decided to try to figure out what was wrong with my health, and not feeling sort of hopeless, and starting to see the naturopathic doctor. Started getting IV treatments of nutrients, and just starting to feel a whole lot better. And yeah, I mean, there's a lot more to the story, but basically that was in the short span after that event, that was sort of what happened.
And tell our listeners what it is exactly that helped you and what it is that you're doing now.
Yes. So what was sort of missing from, let's call it the medical assessment, was that the underlying cause. So there was 2 things for me that were major, and there's lots of other things that it could be when it comes to your energy. But for me, in my story, it was 1, my sleep quality, and 2, my gut health. So I learned, so with the sleep study, through the sleep specialist, they're looking for apnea. They're looking for when you stop breathing when you're sleeping, and that wasn't happening for me. I didn't have sleep apnea, so they're like, okay, you don't have sleep apnea. Let's look at something else. And they wanted to check me for narcolepsy, and I'm like, I don't have narcolepsy. I don't just fall asleep everywhere. Like, I fall asleep when I'm sitting comfortably. It makes sense. So I didn't pursue getting, tested for narcolepsy. Anyhow, I was also working with another specialist in my office who is a TMJ specialist, and he doesn't study sleep or anything, but I knew that he ran sleep studies for his clients, and so I just decided I'm going to show him my sleep study, just because maybe he can tell me something about it. I showed him my sleep study. He told me that I had periods of hypopnea, which is when you're sort of breathing less optimally, but not stopping breathing. And so he did sort of like a quick assessment of my nasal airway. And, we kind of figured that I might have a deviated septum. And so he recommended that I started wearing these nose cones. So they're just little cones that sort of go into your nostrils, and they hold your airway open while you sleep. And so that really helped me to get rid of those periods of hypopneas, and breathe more optimally while I was sleeping. So that was one big thing in terms of my sleep quality. I later learned in my functional medicine training that there's other things, like the timing of your food, and the timing of your beverages, and the timing of your caffeine, and when you are exposed to light, like blue light and red light, and the temperature of your room, and the noise, and all of these other things that can be optimized when you're sleeping. And so I've done all of those things. So, I I wear my nose cones, I make sure the temperature is okay, I avoid blue lights, so like cell phones, screens, and I'm an entrepreneur who works on my computer, so I do I do watch my screen, but I have glasses. I wish I had them nearby, but they're blue light blocking glasses. So I put those on sort of after sunset. And what else? I avoid caffeine after noon because it does have quite a long half-life. And so even if you have a cup like in the early afternoon, depending on the milligrams of caffeine, it could still affect the quality of your sleep. And I remember thinking when I was, completely exhausted, I remember thinking, coffee doesn't do anything. I drink a coffee, I go to sleep, it's fine. But now I know that, that was making things worse. So I avoid caffeine in the afternoons. I actually don't drink caffeine at all. I do decaf anyway, because caffeine just doesn't agree with me in general. So, but if I were to drink caffeine, it would be before noon. And the other part was my gut health. So I was eating meat. I was taking the iron supplements. I was, doing the things that I was supposed to do to help with my iron levels. But it wasn't even my iron levels, really. It ended up being a B12 deficiency, which is what I found out through micronutrient testing. So I was taking B12 injections at first, like intramuscular injections. So I did that in the beginning, and then I started supplementing with B12. And I don't still supplement, but that's what I did in the beginning. And when I am feeling, a little bit more tired than usual, I will sort of take some B12. And it usually is pretty helpful. And what else? So it was gut health. So it's, all the way from from your mouth to your bum and the whole tube. There could be something wrong that whole way through. And so there was issues with, my stomach acidity and not being able to break down the food because I didn't have enough stomach acid. So there was supplementing with stomach acid in the beginning. And still sometimes if I try to have a big meal, I'll have some stomach acid or digestive enzymes to help me digest the food and then absorb the nutrients from it. And then, when you get to the intestines, then there's the gut flora that's in there. There's, the good bugs and the bad bugs. And so supplementing with probiotics and making sure to have lots of prebiotics and probiotics in my diet. And then, avoiding constipation by having high fiber foods, drinking lots of water, and just making sure that everything is sort of running the way that it should in the gut. So those, I think, were the keys to my story in terms of fixing my exhaustion and things that I still do today. So I think that's pretty much it. There's other things that I do too, but I think those are the two most significant to my story anyhow.
It sounds that you really became more conscious about what your body needs. And sometimes I love that example of the caffeine intake. When you're very tired and very exhausted, I remember just the days after 4 or 5 night shifts, I was just so depleted. And I would go drink more coffee, more caffeine. I need more of it because I'm so tired. But it would just negatively affect the sleep when I should sleep, like during the day, which is a completely unnatural time of the day to sleep. But it would not help. And it would not help either to feel well during the night shift or the days after. But it requires really a consciousness about what is it that your body needs and what are the common mistakes we make when we think we do good to our body. This is just what my body needs. But I love how you became more conscious of other things that your body needs and working through them. That's amazing.
Yeah. It's so true. So many of the clients that I work with, I don't believe that it's their sleep that's affected. There are people that know that their sleep is something's wrong with their sleep, but a lot of them they think their sleep is fine and I thought my sleep was fine because I went to bed I fell asleep right away. I stayed asleep the whole time. I slept the 8 hours, and it can't be my sleep. I sleep, it's fine. But I later learned that even though I'm falling asleep and staying asleep, that doesn't mean that I'm sleeping well. And so when I started to actually track, through sleep wearable, like I have a Fitbit and it tracks my sleep. So, not the most accurate, but still gives you information. It's something that you have on you every day that you can see. You can check your sleep score and like try changing things about your lifestyle and see how that impacts your sleep quality. And I could see that when I cut out caffeine and when I started avoiding the lights and all of the things. I kept looking at the data to see, is this helping? So definitely tuning into your body is so important, because in a go, fast-paced environment, it's so easy to just ignore our body and just keep sort of pushing through until your body is like, wait a minute, you have to pay attention to me now, so.
And nourish me the way I need it. Mm-hmm. And that that part of your story now triggers like the next question. You work with moms, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And anyone out there who is a mom, and I know a lot of moms listening, sleep is crap, like, to say the least.
Yep.
Like, even if you're out of the newborn phase and they need to eat every 3-4 hours, that's fine. But even then, I mean, my toddler, he's 3 years old and he can perfectly sleep by himself, but he just doesn't want. Mm-hmm. He loves to bug us at night. He needs a hug. He lost his blanket. He's thirsty. Yeah, exactly. Because you just need to drink like 3 glasses of water at night. That makes perfect sense. But anyhow, they just need us. And that means we really need to focus on the sleep, on the quality of sleep when we can sleep, because there are also these external factors that just allow us not to sleep through the night.
Exactly.
But when you sleep a good chunk of a few hours with a good quality sleep, that changes everything. And I know that moms out there can really relate to that. But the next thing is also, you're on the run. You're focusing on preparing snacks all the time. You go to play dates, you work, you don't have time to really think about what you eat. And so you just eat to not pass out. But in order to really be functioning in a healthy way, you need to be conscious of what you're eating. So when you work with moms, Jessica, tell me, like, what are the biggest struggles and how do you help them as a coach?
Yeah, I mean, I think you named the main ones, being, having that time and space to plan your own meals. I think, I think the biggest barrier is moms shifting the importance back to them and their self-care, because we have this baby and this baby is our life now, and we want to protect and love this baby and do everything for them. And we have to also remember that without us, then who's going to take care of their baby? But in a way that, like, recognizing that we need to take care of ourselves so that we can take care of our baby, and allowing them that time, like allowing them that, giving themselves permission to do that, to say, like, I'm important also, I need to eat right now. Let me eat and then we can eat. Or, we feed our babies first. We do everything for them first, and then later we're just trying to get through, to survive. And I think with simple sort of tweaks to the schedule and how we manage the way we do things and when we do things, it really opens up time, but also just prioritizing that little bit of self-care wherever you can. And like you said, we get interrupted in our sleep, but when we're sleeping, how can we optimize that time so that we're getting that good quality sleep when we're able to get our sleep? And then a lot of planning, I guess, when it comes to trying to nourish your body with the foods that it needs. But it all revolves around breaking down the schedule, figuring out when you're doing certain things, how can you tweak that a little bit to allow your self-care to come in there, and also giving yourself that permission to take care of yourselves, because it's so important. And I think some moms feel like if they're taking care of themselves before their children, then there's guilt associated with that. But I obviously disagree because I know that there's things that we need to do for ourselves so that we can show up and be that present parent, and not like a zombie mom, being there, being alert, having that energy to play with them and do all those things, but also guarding their own ability to take care of themselves and asking for help. I mean, asking your partner, asking your mom, asking your friends. People are so willing to help when you ask them. But I think as moms, we feel like we should do it all. Like we should be able to do it all. We go on Instagram and we see all the moms doing it all. And okay, but you don't see what's going on behind the scenes. And they could have a lot of help. And that was a big part of my story too, is asking for help from everyone. my sister-in-law, my mom, everyone and anyone that's willing to come and take care of my kid at any time is allowed. Like, please come. And then I take that time to do my self-care. Yeah. So
I love that. Yeah. And I love that you give that idea of self-care a very practical notion, because we hear that all the time. Like when you are in this mom's world and everyone constantly says, you need to take care of yourself. Self-care routine is very important, but I cannot go on a wellness weekend, which is what I would need, like 2 days off and sleep straight. I cannot do that. And of course, it's not possible for everyone, but it is the small things. And how you mentioned to put yourself first. I mean, when we just think of, we're in an airplane, in the case of an emergency, you put your mask first, and then you put the mask of the kid. And this is how we also need to start seeing that. And that doesn't mean that we completely neglect and ignore our child's needs in that moment. But maybe you ignore the laundry basket that needs to be folded. That's okay. It can stay there for another 2 days until you find time to do it. Or when you feel nourished and slept, and when you feel that your child is well, then you can take care of these things. That's okay. One thing that I started doing, which helped me a lot, because we live in a country without our families. And unfortunately, we don't have the grandma to come over to take the kid for a walk. But I have a cleaning lady, and I am not ashamed of it. And it might be a big expense in our monthly household expenses, but it just helps my sanity, and it helps my energy balance and the time I can spend with the kids. And another thing is, I loved how you mentioned to ask for help from the most unexpected people. People are kind around you, and we can relate. You see a mom in a supermarket, she's so tired. She's holding that screaming newborn, and she's reaching for the toilet paper, and she cannot reach it. Small things. Can I help you with that? Or I hold the door, or let me carry this for you. Or, or just say, I know how it feels. It will get better once they start sleeping better. Just small appreciations really help to get that mom through the day. So I love that you have this awareness, and you help moms with that. So important.
Yeah. And thanks for sharing about, having a cleaner. Absolutely. Like any sort of help, and, anything that we can delegate to somebody else to do, and sure, it's an expense, but, thinking about how that, what that expense, like the pros and cons of that expense, and your ability to then do your self-care is so important. So help can look so different, and in different people's scenarios. And I can appreciate you being in a place, without your family nearby, but still you were able to figure out how you can get help in that sense. And for me, it was, I always was very neat. I've always been very like sort of organized and attention to detail. And in the beginning, I remember some, recycling. I was, very particular about recycling and making sure everything went into the right bin, and just putting away everything, folding it exactly the way that that it should be to fit in the drawer, and and all the things. And I just kind of was like, never mind. Like when you said looking at the laundry bin and just sort of leaving it, that totally resonated with me, because it was something that I had to stop caring about certain things. And it all gets done eventually, it doesn't have to be done every single day, all the time. And you spend, your whole day cleaning. And I've just learned to live with mess. People come over, it's a mess. I say, I have kids, I'm sorry, and nobody cares. So
we care the
letting
most.
go of some of those things. Yeah, exactly.
Once we can let go of that, and that also is part of the mindset shift, that is not only applicable in a career perspective, but very much so when you parent and in your personal life. Like when you let go of all those expectations of how a house and a home should look like. I mean, these are all superficial expectations. What we want is a warm house, right? A harmonic house, like a house filled with love and space for our kids to grow and to develop and to feel comfortable coming back home, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah, exactly. That's it.
So Jessica, tell us, for everyone out there who can resonate with what you're saying and who is interested in reaching you, to work with you as a health coach, how can they reach you?
So they can definitely follow me on Instagram. So I am Jessica Pozo, and they could also reach out to me via email if they'd like at jess@torontohealthcoach.ca. And I'm on Facebook as well under Jessica Pozo if you want to friend me there. And yeah, those are my main contacts.
That's perfect. I will put all of that in the description of this podcast. And I have one last question. What would you tell your younger self, that Jessica that was mid-20s, yawning and tired and exhausted, with everything you know today? What would you tell her?
I would tell her that there are so many things that you can explore and not to give up. Yeah, that it's not just, to have an open mind and to try something different and to not give up. But there's so many different things that it could be, and sometimes that can feel overwhelming. Like there's so many things that I could do, but the way that I look at it now is from a place of empowerment. Like there's all these things that I can do, and that means that there's a solution to this problem, and I don't have to live like this. So yeah.
And one thing that I found reoccurring in my clients, but also in my personal growth journey, is everything that shows up in your life and you're intuitively drawn to it, just go for it. Just explore that. You don't need to know where that might lead you, or is that does that make sense, or is that right? Sometimes it doesn't in the beginning, and the more you step into that new world, the more it opens up and it will make sense. But that intuitive connection that you have with something like you had, this makes all the difference. So that's something that is really nice to see. There's so many options out there, and it's not a one size fit all or one therapy fits everyone approach. Nowadays we have all the opportunities, and I love what you do and how you bring your personal experience in helping people now. This is beautiful.
I love that. I love what you said, and sort of following your intuition. And especially as moms, our intuition is so strong. And sometimes society kind of has a way of trying to dampen our intuition to make us think that that can't be it. But maybe it is. And having that open mind and following it. And the worst case scenario is like, maybe it didn't work, but you tried it, and what else? What else, rather than not trying anything at all,
Yeah.
So
thank you so much for being a guest today, Jessica, and sharing your story.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a lovely conversation, and I'd love to be back in the future if there's an opportunity.
I love your energy. And guys, really, if you would like to connect with Jessica, head over to her website. Now, you don't have a website, right?
No, I have an Instagram and a Facebook page and an email.
Yeah, so head over to her social media accounts and connect with her. This is very easy nowadays. See what she's doing, and if you feel drawn to her, just go ahead and reach out. And if you know anyone who could benefit from listening to Jessica's story today, go ahead and share this episode. We need to spread the love and the hope, and I hope you help me with that. And follow me for more inspiring stories to come. Until next time at Raw and Real with Stefanie Fernandes. Bye now.